It started with lasagna. Homemade, bubbling over in the oven, the smell filling our little kitchen like an affectionate hug. 15 years of marriage, and this was the dish she always made when she wanted to mark something special: birthdays, promotions, the time I passed that kidney stone and didn't cry much. So when I came home that Thursday and caught the scent wafting through the door, I smiled. Thought maybe she remembered our anniversary after all. Turns out, she did. Just not in the way I expected. I walked in to see the table set for 2 candles, cloth napkins, wine already breathing like it had better places to be. And there she was, Lisa, my wife, standing in the kitchen wearing the same red dress she wore on our honeymoon night. The one I always joked was too classy for me and too dangerous for most restaurants. "You dressed up," I said, setting my briefcase down. "Big night?" She gave a soft smile. "I wanted it to feel special. We haven't had a dinner like this in a while." She was right. We'd both been busy, me with work, her with her fitness classes, and that new marketing job she landed 6 months ago. And the kids, well, teenagers don't exactly invite romance into a household. So I kissed her on the cheek, sat down at the table, and raised my glass. "To 15 years," I said. She smiled again, tighter this time. "To 15 years. The lasagna was perfect, of course. And she kept pouring the wine like she was working up to something, which, in hindsight, she absolutely was. But in that moment, I thought maybe, just maybe, she was planning a second honeymoon or wanted to reignite what we had. Foolish optimism. The kind of blind hope only a loyal husband can muster while holding a fork full of betrayal. Because later that night, after we finished dessert and the kids were asleep, I found something. Not lipstick on the collar. Not perfume on the shirt. No, my discovery was far less cinematic and way more 2025. Her phone. She'd left it on the couch, screen still glowing. A new text popped up before I could even look away. "Tell him yet." 3 words. Simple, casual, almost polite. But they hit me like a brick through a stained glass window. I didn't even have to guess who him was. I was him. And in that moment, holding that phone, sitting in the living room lit only by the TV screensaver, I realized something chilling. This wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the calm before the storm. Now, if I were the paranoid type, I might have snapped right then. But I'm not. I'm the overthinker. The sit back and watch kind. So I put her phone back exactly where I found it and poured myself another glass of wine. Watched the screensaver bounce around like my thoughts. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just laid there, listening to the rhythmic breathing of the woman I now suspected had emotionally clocked out of our marriage while still sharing my pillow. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. "Going to the gym after work," she said, sipping her green smoothie. "You want anything for dinner?" "Surprise me," I replied. And oh, she had already. That afternoon, while pretending to work, I opened our shared laptop. She wasn't great with tech, passwords were predictable, and browsers always remembered everything. Within 20 minutes, I had stumbled on the holy grail, a second email account. Clever, really, her maiden name, plus a string of numbers I recognized from her college ID. What I found in that inbox wasn't just betrayal. It was documentation. Emails to a man named Ryan. Some subject lines were innocent. Tuesday meeting, spin class notes. But others? Not so much. You smell like sin and safety at the same time. He still has no clue. Sometimes I feel bad, but not enough to stop. Each word felt like sandpaper against my skull. Still, I didn't confront her. I wasn't ready to give her that satisfaction, the surprise, the tears, the inevitable blame shifting. Instead, I started planning. I made a copy of every email. Screenshotted texts. I even installed a keystroke logger, just in case. Yeah, I know. Paranoid now. But once you're halfway through the rabbit hole, you don't climb out, you dig faster. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I got the proof I needed. Tuesday afternoon. She said she had a late strategy meeting. So I drove to the gym parking lot at 6 p.m. and waited. Watched people go in. Watched them come out. She wasn't one of them. But Ryan? He was. Tall, lean, that annoyingly smug, I do CrossFit and tell people about it posture. 10 minutes later, she came out 2 different entrants. Hair up, cheeks flushed. Not from exercise. They didn't kiss. They were smarter than that. But they walked to his car together. She looked around before getting in. And I realized, right then, I wasn't married anymore. I was just the placeholder. The guy who still paid the mortgage while someone else got the version of her who smiled for no reason. Thursday came, and with it, the invitation. Not a text, not an email, A handwritten note, left on my nightstand like it was Valentine's Day and not, whatever this actually was. Dinner tomorrow? Just us. I need to talk. Love, Lisa. Love. That word felt cheap now. Like a knockoff watch, still shiny, but doesn't tick right. I showed up anyway. Why? Because curiosity and dignity don't always ride in the same car. I wore a pressed shirt, clean shave, tried to look like a man who hadn't been gutted on the inside by a gym bro named Ryan. The restaurant was one of those dimly lit places where you're supposed to feel important. Candles, jazz, prices that required a small loan. Lisa was already there, hair done up, wine glass in hand. She smiled like nothing was broken. I sat down. She reached for my hand. Logan, she began. Red flag. She only called me by name when she was about to drop a bomb. There's someone I've been seeing. Boom. I blinked. That was it. No apology. No tears. Just a line dropped with the casual elegance of someone ordering a side salad. I leaned back. How long? She hesitated. A few months. My jaw clenched, but I kept my tone calm. Ryan. She flinched. That gave me more satisfaction than I care to admit. You knew? I'm not an idiot, Lisa. Just a husband. We get things late, but we get them. She looked relieved, or maybe just lighter. Like confessing her crime had finally removed the weight of guilt. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. You never do. That's the charm of betrayal. It always feels accidental to the one doing it. Then, of all things, the waiter arrived. Like we weren't sitting in the middle of a life detonation. Lisa ordered salmon. I didn't order anything. Logan, I didn't ask you here to hurt you, she said. I just needed you to know. To be honest. Honest, I echoed. That's rich. She sighed. I think it's best we take some time apart. For clarity. I looked at her, really looked. She was already gone. Just a ghost wearing lipstick and my last name. So I stood up. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. Just dropped my napkin on the table. You've had all the clarity you need, I said. Enjoy your salmon. And I walked out. Didn't look back. Didn't need to. I already knew what she'd look like crying into her overpriced Chardonnay. When I got home that night, I didn't rage. I didn't punch the wall or drown in whiskey like some sad country song cliche. I just walked through the front door like I always did, jacket over one arm, keys spinning on my finger, mind echoing the words. There's someone I've been seeing. Funny how that sentence can turn a fully furnished home into a museum. Everything suddenly looked staged, like none of it really belonged to me. I stood in the entryway for a while, staring at the hallway photos. Our wedding, a vacation in Maui, Lisa smiling in front of the Grand Canyon, my arm around her waist like I believed it would always be mine. They say pictures never lie, but they don't age well with betrayal. The house was clean. Too clean. She must have tidied up before dinner, like she wanted her guilt to walk into a spotless home after detonating the bomb. A parting gift wrapped in lemon-scented disinfectant. I walked into the living room, collapsed on the couch, and stared at nothing. The silence was deafening. No music. No TV. Just the hum of the refrigerator in the other room, like some mechanical sigh. It was the first time in 15 years I felt like a stranger in my own house. And here's the thing about being cheated on. It doesn't hit you all at once. It trickles in, like a slow leak in a roof you thought was solid. First it's just a drip. Then you start noticing water spots. Then the whole ceiling caves in, and suddenly, you're the idiot sitting in the rubble, asking how you didn't see it sooner. I got up and walked around, doing what I later called taking inventory. Not of things, of moments, of lies. In the kitchen, I opened the cabinet where she kept the vitamins. I noticed the new bottle of collagen gummies she said were for her joint pain. Right, just joint pain. Nothing to do with impressing a 28-year-old spin instructor who calls everyone dude. I moved on. The closet had new shoes, heels I'd never seen before. Still in the box. Size 8, her size. Tags still hanging off them like guilt she didn't have time to cut. Her side of the bed was made perfectly. Mine was a mess, like it had wrestled with a hurricane. Which, in a way, it had. I found her journal in the nightstand. Normally, I wouldn't read it. But normal left the building the moment Ryan's name entered the picture. The first few pages were innocent enough. Grocery lists, random thoughts, doodles of hearts and names. Then, on page 17, I feel alive again. It's scary but exciting. Ryan sees me, not the version I perform, but the woman underneath all the roles. Wife, mom, coworker, he doesn't ask anything from me. He just wants me. That last part felt like a knife. Not because she wrote it, but because she never gave me that kind of honesty. She was always more transparent on paper than in person. I closed the journal and sat on the edge of the bed. And that's when it happened, the question no man ever wants to hear in his own mind. Was I enough? That one sneaks up on you. It comes wrapped in logic. I provided, I supported, I showed up. But infidelity doesn't care about logic. It's a fire that burns down the barn because someone left the door open to the idea of more. And suddenly, I was questioning everything. The late nights, the gym classes, the business trips that didn't add up, the way she'd smile at her phone, then flip it face down when I entered the room. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the realization that someone had slowly started editing you out of your own story. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not out of protest, just instinct. The master bedroom felt like walking into a crime scene where the blood had been cleaned, but the stench of violence still lingered. The next morning, I woke up early and did what I do best when things fall apart. I made a plan. First, I called my lawyer. Asked what my options were. Didn't say why. He didn't ask. Then, I went to the hardware store. Bought a set of smart locks. Not because I was worried about safety. I just didn't want to be surprised again. I got home and changed the locks by noon. By 1 p.m., I'd boxed up everything she owned that didn't have shared value. Her clothes, her shoes, her yoga gear, that damn juicer she used twice and swore was life-changing. It all went into neat little piles by the front door. At 1:30, I sent her a text. The locks have changed. Your things are by the front door. Let me know when you want to pick them up. You have until Sunday. No emotion. No begging. Just logistics. Because when someone decides to rewrite the script without you, the only thing left to do is flip the table. Sunday came, and with it, the rain. Poetic, I guess. The kind of light drizzle that feels like the sky's way of giving you a pat on the back and saying, yeah, that was rough, man. I sat by the window with a cup of coffee, watching droplets race down the glass like they were trying to outrun each other. Meanwhile, I was just trying to outrun my thoughts. Lisa showed up around noon. No text. No knock. I only knew she was there because the motion alert from the new smart cam pinged my phone. Front door. Person detected. I didn't get up. I just watched from the upstairs window as she stood there in her raincoat, hair tucked behind her ears like she used to do when we were younger, back when everything still made sense. She looked around like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to feel something. Then, slowly, she started gathering her things. One box at a time. She didn't try the door. Didn't ring the bell. Just moved in silence, loading her car like she was packing away a version of her life she'd already deleted. Part of me expected drama. Tears. Accusations. Maybe a speech about how I was being cold or how I didn't fight for us. But no. She just took the boxes and left. I should have felt satisfied. I didn't. I felt like a landlord evicting a tenant who'd stopped paying rent in the currency of love. That night, I got a text. I didn't think it would end like this. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to let her use regret as a band-aid for consequences. Instead, I opened a new email and started writing something I never thought I'd type. Subject, to whom it may concern, regarding employee conduct. Ryan worked at a boutique gym, the kind of place that charges $300 a month to make you feel like you're part of some exclusive sweat cult. I didn't want revenge. Not really. I wanted clarity. So I sent an anonymous message to his corporate headquarters, attaching screenshots of him and Lisa leaving the gym together, her journal excerpts, and the timestamped parking lot photos. I made sure to highlight the line about how clients deserve a space free of inappropriate relationships. A little nudge. Nothing malicious. Just enough to stir the pot. 2 days later, Ryan's Instagram went dark. By Thursday, his name vanished from the gym's About Us page. And I? I went to therapy. Yeah. You heard me right. I booked a session with a guy named Dr. Baird, calm voice, beard that made him look like a wise lumberjack. I told him the whole story in one breath. The dinner, the emails, the journal, the boxes by the door. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "That sounds incredibly painful, but also incredibly sane." I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I actually laughed. Why sane? I asked. Because you didn't try to burn it all down, he said. You preserved yourself. That stuck with me. Not because it made me feel heroic, but because it reminded me I hadn't let her break me. Lisa's betrayal didn't turn me into a monster. It turned me into a man who finally took stock. And speaking of stock, I had another project brewing. You see, Lisa had introduced Ryan to a few folks in her marketing network, one of whom happened to be running a product launch in a few weeks. I knew this because she used to vent about it over dinner. He's trying to pitch a supplement line but has no idea how digital campaigns work. So I made another anonymous account. This one was just a little Instagram page called it Ryan the Rep. I filled it with generic fitness memes, screenshots from our emails, with names blurred, of course, and a few subtle warnings. Don't let personal ethics cost you professional credibility. It went semi-viral in a day. Small, but noticeable. Within 72 hours, Ryan's name wasn't just gone from the gym. It was a whisper in the supplement forums too. Now, let me be clear, I didn't ruin him. I just gave people what they needed to see what was already there. As for Lisa, she moved in with her sister. I know because I mailed the last box of her stuff there. No note. Just her wedding ring, sitting on top like a cherry on a very bitter Sunday. People talk about closure like it's a moment. A tearful hug. A final conversation. But for me, it was simpler than that. Closure was walking through my house at 9:13 p.m. on a Thursday and realizing nothing in it reminded me of her anymore. No stray bobby pins. No lavender shampoo. No ghost of laughter lingering in the hall. Just me. A man who got burned and walked out of the fire cleaner than he went in. There's a funny thing that happens after betrayal. Eventually, the hurt wears off and leaves behind something sharper. Clarity. Not peace. Not yet. But the kind of awareness that makes you notice things you used to ignore. Like how quiet the house really was without her. Or how mornings felt different when you weren't trying to read someone else's mood over coffee. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't waiting for a smile that didn't come. I wasn't guessing if her silence meant stress or contempt. I just drank my coffee and enjoyed the silence like it was jazz, low, steady, and unbothered. But not everyone appreciated my calm. 1 week after Lisa moved out, I started getting smoke signals. It began with texts from her friends, the ones who used to gush over our perfect marriage at dinner parties and now sent passive-aggressive messages like, "We don't know what Lisa told you, but relationships are complex. No one's blameless." Blameless. Sure. And I suppose burglars deserve a trophy if the door was unlocked. Then came the family ambush. Her mother, who once called me the rock of the family at Thanksgiving, left a voicemail soaked in guilt and wine. "Logan, sweetheart, I know things got rough, but Lisa's been under so much pressure. She made a mistake. We all do. You can't just throw away 15 years over one lapse in judgment." One lapse. You ever notice how the people defending infidelity always shrink it down to the size of a paper cut? A lapse. A mistake. Like she tripped and fell into another man's life. But here's the kicker. I didn't respond to any of it. Silence became my language of choice. And nothing unsettles a guilty person like the absence of reaction. No threats. No groveling. No online rants. Just a man living his life and letting the consequences echo louder than any words ever could. But Lisa? She couldn't handle the quiet. It started with subtle posts on social media. She never mentioned me by name, just vague, melodramatic captions like, "Learning to love myself again, Dizzy," or "Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is let go, herb. I didn't bite. Then came the mutual friend encounter. I ran into Greg, one of the guys from our old couples game night group, at the grocery store. We did the awkward small talk thing until he leaned in, like he was about to deliver a government secret. "You know she's not with Ryan anymore, right?" I just raised an eyebrow. Didn't realize I was keeping score. He nodded slowly. It ended badly. Word is, he ghosted her after someone torpedoed his gig at the gym and wrecked his reputation with the supplement brand. I shrugged. Tough business. Greg studied me for a second. "You didn't have anything to do with that, did you?" I smiled. Not smug. Not evil. Just enough to suggest that I was a man who stopped playing checkers when the other guy was still learning chess. Later that night, I got the text. "Can we talk?" No name. Just that. But I knew who it was. And I knew exactly why she was reaching out. It wasn't regret. It wasn't love. It was the sound of the door finally locking behind her. She had walked out thinking she'd land on a mattress made of second chances. But life doesn't always offer soft landings to those who jump without checking the drop. I stared at the message for a full minute. Then I typed back. "About what?" She replied in seconds. "Everything. I miss talking to you. Just one call." I thought about it. Thought about the man I was 6 months ago, how he'd beg for that kind of message. How he'd stay up refreshing his phone, hoping for a breadcrumb of affection. But I wasn't that man anymore. I was the man who'd survived the storm. And not just survived, thrived. So I typed. No calls. Just answers. I sent her a list. Nothing angry. Just curated. What exactly was the timeline with Ryan? Did anyone else know before I did? Why did you choose that dinner to tell me? Was it really just him? She left me on read. And that was all the answer I needed. Because in the end, cheaters don't crumble under confrontation. They collapse under silence. Under precision. Under the weight of their own unfinished stories. And mine? Mine was just beginning. I went upstairs, cracked open a fresh notebook, and jotted down the words. A clean break isn't revenge. It's freedom. Then I opened a bottle of decent scotch, not celebratory, just ceremonial, and sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the trees. No more smoke signals. No more stories that start with lies and end with lawyers. Just the sound of wind through the leaves and the quiet assurance that I wasn't broken. I was rebuilding. And when I was finished, she'd regret that she ever thought I'd be the one left in ruins. I didn't reinvent myself overnight. That's Instagram nonsense. There was no montage of me getting a six-pack, traveling solo to Bali, or starting a motivational podcast. What I did do was take my life off cruise control. I canceled Netflix, joined a boxing gym, started cooking for one with better ingredients than I ever used when I was feeding two. I even bought a motorcycle, not because I was chasing some midlife crisis cliche, but because I wanted to feel wind in my face and noise in my ears that didn't come from arguments. And I went back to school, just one course. Strategic risk analysis. It started as a way to occupy my mind and ended up sharpening something I hadn't used in years, patience. See, Lisa had always said I was too predictable. What she didn't understand is that predictability is a strategy. It lulls people, makes them think they know your next move. And when you finally act, they never see it coming. It was almost poetic when she reached out again, this time through her lawyer. Apparently, Lisa wanted to revisit the asset division. Turns out Ryan had disappeared, her job had downsized, and that new condo she moved into? Yeah, it was a rental. She'd overplayed her hand and thought maybe I'd still be the generous fool. Her request was polite, almost apologetic. Said she'd made mistakes and was just trying to land on her feet. I reviewed the documents. Then I responded. With receipts, emails, photos, calendar records, messages, all compiled neatly and bound into a timeline that made Watergate look disorganized. I didn't raise my voice. I raised my standards. My lawyer sent a brief reply. Our client is not interested in amending terms previously agreed upon. We trust this will conclude the matter. And that was it. Done. Official. Irrevocable. The house stayed mine. The account stayed mine. The peace? Oh, that was all mine. You ever hear someone say, the best revenge is living well? That's only partly true. The best revenge is living well and letting them watch. 6 months later, I ran into one of Lisa's friends at a charity run. She asked how I was doing, her tone wrapped in fake concern and curiosity. I heard things got tough, she said. I smiled. Nah, things got clear. She blinked, and I walked away. That afternoon, I posted a photo, not of me shirtless on a mountain or kissing a new woman in the Bahamas. Just a shot of my living room, sunlit, quiet, a book and a whiskey on the table. Captioned, peace costs nothing. Regret? That'll bankrupt you. Lisa saw it. She liked it, then unliked it. Twice. That's the digital equivalent of screaming into a pillow. I never went scorched earth. I never trashed her to mutual friends. I never aired our laundry in public. That's not my style. What I did do, over time, was become the man she underestimated. Stronger. Sharper. Freer. She thought I was the safe choice. The reliable one. The man you marry when you're tired of the thrill. She thought I'd stay predictable, even when she stopped playing fair. But here's the truth no one told her. The quiet ones? We don't shout when we're wronged. We wait. We learn. We rebuild. And when the time comes, we win by simply not needing revenge at all. Because in the end, Lisa didn't just lose a husband. She lost the one man who still believed in her when she didn't deserve it. And me? I didn't just survive the betrayal. I turned it into a blueprint. One that started with heartbreak and ended with absolute freedom.